Hi everybody. Thought I would show you right now what I'm thinking about modeling on the expansion. So this is the Chillicothe, Ohio yard. This is a map from CSX. It's not to scale. It even says right on it, not to scale. Scale is none. Dated 1988. This is when they retired the yard. Has 54,000 feet of track and 70 turnouts. Notice I didn't say switches, I said turnouts. The engineering department did. The area I modeled now is down here. Yeah, this is Douglas Avenue, would be the next street after Watt Street. This is Main Street, Chillicothe. This is where the overpass is, because this is Norfolk Southern that comes up through here. And they cross. There's a diamond right here, and there's actually two diamonds because one of the spur tracks, I think called the Sherman track, was actually across the Norfolk Southern too. Had a turntable, the remnants of the roundhouse. This is where the depot sat right here in this corner. When they had passenger service, N&W had a long platform down along here, which was long gone. Concrete's still there. And the B&O's platform was along here. This was the interchange track right here. And the car shops were in here. They had locomotive servicing facilities. Obviously the steam coaling dock was long gone. It was torn down like 1960 or something. Anyhow, I'm going to flip this over because I'm going to show you how it fits more into my space. So before I flip it over and talk about how I'm going to model it, let's show you the map one more time. Again, this is Main Street, the diamonds right here. This is Watt Street. This is the yard, at a 5-track yard. I'm not counting the side that went all the way down through. There are 5 double-ended sidings on there. One of them is super short. I mean, just like maybe 300 or 400 feet long. This was a diesel fuel tank, huge diesel fuel tank. There's a building up here, still says owned by CSX. They store track materials here, and they also store track materials down here where the roundhouse used to be. B&O freight depot used to be right along here before they built the overpass. I don't remember these tracks here at all. I guess they were there because they were taking them up. They might have just been all overgrown. But they did have tank cars to unload diesel fuel in here, and they did serve that, I guess you'd call it maintenance away office or something. These are the boneyard tracks. That's where they stored old cabooses and cars waiting to be scrapped. 7th Street is right here, and there's a graveyard on the other side of it, 7th Street. So that's another reason why they call it the boneyard. It's sort of a typical thing for railroaders, or they'll call it like a stone orchard when they're talking about a cemetery. These are the shop tracks. These are cars waiting to be worked on. Chillicothe rebuilt a lot of cabooses and things. But you can see Watt Street had a zillion tracks across it. It was always really rough crossing. And the shops were right in here. They had a transfer table between the shops. So these tracks here could pretty much go into the one shop building. I think this track here says T66. I think it actually went onto the transfer table, and then the transfer table went between the two big buildings, which I'll show you that are still there. And this track right here, I've got a picture of a boxcar on it when they were getting ready to move everything out, like a stores, company stores type thing. So let me pull this away and show you what it looks like now. Okay, here's the area now on Google Earth. Let me zoom in a little bit more. I think it's really funny how they've got this building up here labeled Chassis System Track Supervisor. So it's obviously not the chassis system now, but that building is still there, still owned by CSX. They keep track materials there, and down here is obviously where the roundhouse used to be, and they have track materials stored there, pieces of rail, all kinds of stuff. Turntable was here. This is the interchange track looping around between Norfolk Southern. So this part of the yellow track is gone. From here to here is 2,400 feet. It was a tiny yard. I said, I only had 5 tracks, and they didn't start like right off the bat, and they couldn't switch really and cross Norfolk Southern all the time. So basically Watt Street was tied up a whole lot, but the only things that really originated out of Chillicothe were the locals. Going east out of Chillicothe, west out of Chillicothe. The Portsmouth branch originated in Chillicothe. So, you know, it was a crew change point for crews between Parkersburg and Cincinnati, but they didn't really originate any trains. Again, the depot was right up here. The yard is right here. So, you know, that is, you know, the yard is actually north of the main line, and the roundhouse engine service facilities are actually what I call south of the main line. And here's the two buildings that are left. These are the shop buildings. There used to be a transfer table in between them. So a shop track came in here and would push the car there, and it could go between the two buildings, paint shop, mechanical shop, I don't know, really, carpenter shop, I don't know what they were. These have been repurposed now. They're used by some other companies. Funny thing was, it was the first indoor tennis facility in Chillicothe, because I played tennis in high school, and I played tennis in one of these buildings. They had these beams up, so it was really easy to hit a beam if you were trying to hit a lob shot or something. So I wonder if the tennis court is still visible inside those buildings. I always wondered that. This is sort of a transload thing they put in later that hasn't been used in about 15 years, but they transloaded chemicals there. So let me show you how we'll try to make this fit on my layout and my space. Okay, we'll see how confusing this is. This is the same map, but it's taped upside down. The main line, remember I've got two lines coming out of Chillicothe. The one toward the backdrop would be what I consider the main line. It would go through all the way down to the wall, which would be a little bit of staging if I could do it. This bracket that you can see right here, that's the end of the full width that I can get for that. So the next track, inner track, would be what I consider track 1, which on the map is track 1. I keep saying they had 5-yard tracks, they had 6-yard tracks, really. They had 6 double-ended yard tracks, and one of them was just a few hundred feet long, if that. I probably won't have 6, but I would have track 1 would sort of be double as the yard lead. It'd be the arrival departure track and maybe like the yard lead as well. And I don't know, I'm not an expert on yard design yet. Ron's Trains and Things has a couple good videos on yards. I'm going to do a little bit of research on yards before I take the lead. Anyhow, the yard tracks would be closer to me. The shop buildings would be flats against the backdrop. So I have 2 big shop buildings, when I showed you that were still there, with the transfer table in between them, and you know, they would just be looking at the ends like that. I would represent the shop tracks by having just maybe 1 or 2 tracks on that side of the main back here, and I just park a bunch of old cars. I get some Atlas B&O box cars with roof locks and stuff, you know, some stuff that doesn't fit in my era. That's where they would be. They're waiting to be modernized or scrapped or whatever. They would be back against there. Even though if I flip it backwards like the map would be, technically the N&W crossing would be here and the depot would be here. I'm not going to have that. I'm going to move it down here. I'm going to move the depot down here, and the N&W dummy diamond would be, you know, right there. Anyhow, I would like to have the engine facilities and the turntable and the little remnants of the roundhouse. The best place to put it would be right here to sort of hide that curve coming out of Douglas Avenue and everything, if it will fit. I might need to take this and make it a little bit wider up to here, because this is a 16-inch shelf bracket. It will stick out a little bit more. I do not want 24 inches. I don't want it to be reaching back 24 inches. So 18 inches is about the widest I want to go. And that would be fine for the yard and everything. So my vision would be, I would build trains in the yard, go to Douglas Avenue, switch, come back, put the cars on either the eastbound track, the westbound track. I'd have dummy trains in JMRI that would pick them up and drop off cars for Douglas Avenue and for Oak Hill again. The Oak Hill switcher would run through Chillicothe to here to do the interchange. They'd drop off their cars, pick up the cars, waiting for them in Chillicothe, go back. Then the Chillicothe yard switcher would put them in the tracks, whether they're going to go east or west. That's my envision. And JMRI can do that just with, it has some dummy trains because I don't have room to have actual staging yards to where I can do that. But I think that, I've talked to Pete, my friend in Kansas City, who's a JMRI expert, guru, and he says, yeah, I've got enough cars to be able to do that. Just run some dummy trains. I'll still be taking cars on and off the layout. Every car I own is not going to be in the yard. That's not what yards are for. It's not realistic. So I will still be taking cars on and off the layout like I do now. So that's my vision. Anyhow, I'm going to do a lot more research. I'm going to get the Walther's Roundhouse maybe. I think it comes in 3 stalls anyhow. See how close it is to what I want to model. That way I know the space of it. My friend Fran has a turntable. He said I could talk him out of it, maybe trade him something for it. And then I can see, once I get that, I can see if it's going to fit in here. And so the engine facilities would be in here where I can keep the locomotives on the layout, most of them anyhow, is my vision. If I have to, I could put the locomotive somewhere else. But that's what I'd like to model. I'd like to model as close to Chillicothe as I can. Like I said, the backdrop will be mostly shop buildings, and then just flats of residential and stuff around there. That's where I'm at. That's with my thinking. Anybody sees any problems with that, let me know. Again, it's going to be sort of a slow going. As you can see, I did complete the backdrop all the way around to the wall anyhow, and my construction method is I've got 3/4 inch plywood with the on top of the shelf brackets with the foam laminated to it. Since it's a yard, there's not going to be any fancy streams, anything like that. It's going to be sort of like urban scenery. Probably I'm a little worried about this distance between these two right here. Possibly the 3/4 inch plywood might warp, sag, whatever. So I'm thinking about getting a piece of angle iron from Tractor Supply or something and screw maybe 2 pieces and screwing it to the bottom of the 3/4 inch plywood just to stiffen it, so to make sure that that does not work. Because I think the rest of the places is going to be pretty well supported, but here I've got 3 or 4 feet, so I'm thinking about doing that, and it wouldn't be in the way, obviously. All right, that's all I've got. So again, if you have any questions, comments, I am going to put, I've got a bunch of pictures that I took in 1985 before they tore it up. So I'm going to have a slideshow right now, and I'll talk about some of the pictures and try to keep this a reasonable length. I decided to make this one a video so I can point stuff out. So this is the yard. This is after 1965 or so, because you can't see it in the picture, but the Mead Paper Company smokestack is built, and it was built in the early 60s. The roundhouse has been torn down, but it looks like fairly recently. Here's the 2 buildings that are still there right now. These are the shop tracks. This is the boneyard, cemetery over here. Here's the main line. Again, this is Watt Street. This is Main Street. From here to there is 2,400 feet, so less than half a mile. So it's a very small yard. This is the diesel tank. It was piped underground to the fueling facilities, which are right here, right in front of the turntable. You can see those tracks that I said about the map that I didn't know they were there. There's nothing on them, but obviously they were there. Anyhow, So again, it's a very small yard, and I'm going to swivel these buildings around. So actually the fronts of them will face sort of this way against the backdrop, and the transfer tables in between them. This is a photograph by Jim Henry. He was a Southern Ohio Railroad historian, especially about the DT&I. He knew a lot about all the railroads. So this is May 1979. Turntable was still operational. You can see a couple of the buildings that are still there in the background here. So I would sort of like to duplicate this scene. Another photograph from the Chillicothe Train Club calendar. And so this is by Dennis Kaiser. I don't know him. I do know Jim Henry. But this is a southbound DT&I train after they were running on the chassis system trackage rights after they abandoned the line over Summit Hill, and getting orders at the Chillicothe Depot. And that's the Main Street overpass they're going underneath right there. So here are some pictures I took at the Chillicothe Depot. Obviously it was warm weather, different time when I took of the yard buildings. My brother and I actually measured out. I got a hand drawing of it and got the dimensions of it, at least all the angles and everything. It'd be a really tough scratch building project, though. I don't know if I would be up for it or not. It looks like it would. There's a lot of stuff on this building. Here's the yard before they tore it up. Obviously, depot is all boarded up at this point. They're getting ready to abandon everything. But you can see most of the yard tracks in this case, so really sort of a sad sight. So this is the transfer table in the lower right that ran between the two big shop buildings. Obviously this picture was taken in the winter. This was when I walked around and had permission by an operator in the B&O depot to take these pictures. Just told me to be careful. So I walked around and took pictures of everything I could. Wish I'd taken more, obviously. This is what's left of the roundhouse. These were taken in the winter of 1985. And this is the inside of the roundhouse. Here's the turntable. Again, it was still operational till the end. See depot on the background. This building was attached to the roundhouse, as you're going to see in the old aerial photo. It was like a machine shop or something, but it's in the area circled in blue in this photo. The diesel servicing facilities, basically I'm standing on the turntable looking east. You sort of see the depot in that picture. Looked like they were loading this old boxcar with company stores and things. I think it has a roof walk on it, believe it or not, 1985. Probably just not in the interchange service, though. Same building. These are just miscellaneous shots around the yard. Again, if I had a digital camera, I'd have 100 pictures. Back then you had film cameras and you had to pay money for the film, had to pay money to develop it, and I wish I'd had 3 times as many pictures as I do. I think this is pretty cool with the ghost building there. And just to make you depressed, this is what it looked like back in the heyday of steam. This is probably in the 40s or so. So it was a pretty fabulous place. Hope everybody enjoyed this. Have any questions, comments, let me know. Stay safe. Here's a couple of pictures I found later. That N&W train is northbound. It's going to go behind the depot and hit the diamonds in a few hundred feet. That's an Elko, that second unit with the older paint scheme. So this was probably before 1980. The engine was probably off the roster by 1980. And the next picture is a really cool picture. I have no idea why the grain cars are on the engine tracks. I guess they needed the storage space. maybe this was toward the end when they quit fueling locomotives in Chillicothe, and so this might be 85, 86, something like that, before CSX really took hold with their paint schemes. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the extra pictures, and let me know if you have any questions. Stay safe.